All right. So today, me and Nick are going to dissolve some of the facts and fancies about the various doctrines from the East and the West. Now, both can be liberating or imprisoning based on if they're interpreted correctly. Here we have a few different books and sources, and we're going to dive in and explain how the doctrine of reincarnation is essentially flawed, the doctrine of karma has been misinterpreted, as well as the law of gender and the soul's gender functions disembodied and pre-existence. So, like we said, right, the goal of all of these studies is self-conscious immortality, onward and upward. And we have actually been plagued by the misinterpretation of some of these ancient doctrines. Everyone's quick to, they discard their Western religion, they go to the East, whether physically or mentally, to seek enlightenment, and they don't know that just because the information's new doesn't mean it's always correct, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what we're going to go into first is chapter 1 of Illuminated Brahmanism. This book was quoted and sourced through Light of Egypt by Thomas H. Burgoyne, volume 1. So this is someone that he's gotten some of his information from. So let's go to chapter 1. So the original significance of the doctrine of reincarnation. From the realm of creative energy and spirit, there comes to the world of physical expression a power of thought which fails to find full significance in the poverty of human language. I'll go ahead and mute your mic real quick, just because of the
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Awesome. So it is limited in its range of appreciation by the undeveloped mind of Earth, and unless specially guarded by repeated explanations, becomes subject to a construction that is often diametrically opposed to its original meaning. Among the many primitive ideas that belong to the early religious status of India was the doctrine of incarnation of spirit, and among the lamentable results of misunderstanding, it is the midnight darkness of the soul that envelops that unfortunate people who, by the perverted language of what was once a great truth and is now, are victims of a malign superstition. If there's anyone blamable for this perversion, it is that priesthood that in my name has taught a doctrine, which as I thought it was indeed true, but which under its perverted form has become a source of the most pestilent spiritual mischief. It was taught that one God alone was supreme, and that the true object of adoration and praise was that one God. I taught that from this great being proceeded all that had life and existence in the world of spirit or mortal being. It was also taught that this being, all who passed from physical life would return to, but it was never taught that returning their presence of spiritual nature, your spirit going back to the great Om, right? In this book, the creator, supreme Lord is considered Om. Okay. And he calls it the great Om. It was never taught that this would result in the annihilation of the individual or his inability to return to Earth as a spirit. And in the last video, we kind of talked about how, a lot of people jump to the fact, okay, reincarnation is not real because we're all one, right? There's no point, there's no real reincarnation because there's only one being separating into millions of different beings. And when you disembody, right, you're just back to the one. So if it incarnates again, it's not you, it's just the one, right? And he's saying that no, returning back to the spirit world does not result in annihilation of the individual. Okay? It was taught that all spirits could return to Earth to manifest and influence mortals, and I also taught that such a return would be determined by the mental bias of the individual. If of a low order, his affiliation spiritual would be the companionship of beasts and reptiles, for I knew that all life of whatever order had its spiritual counterpart in the invisible world. When I say that it was known, it was because in experiences and the study of spiritual truths, it was observant by all the spheres of spiritual unfoldment that was seen that not only did man have an immortal nature, but that the lower orders of life had their immortality as well. It was taught that the nature of eternal life and the methods whereby spiritual happiness was to be secured there were certain obstacles to a perfect comprehension of the ideas that all the reformers find in all the ages of the world. There are those who could not understand how a spirit could come to earth without being re-embodied in physical life. And there were many who could not imagine that any life could be which was beyond the cognizance of the physical senses. And Nick, go ahead. We were explaining how, in the higher realms, right, people think that obviously a soul does need to have a body for a vehicle of expression, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the physical body is not our only body of expression. And once you graduate from the physical realm, it said, right, spirits could come to earth. Spirits could return to earth to manifest and influence, but not re-embodied.
Yeah, yeah, and this can be pretty much proven as well, and especially with ritual practices. There is methods and to be able to summon back your ancestors to guide you or to assist you in some way. But if that were the case, then how would they be able to do that if they reincarnated? There might be some people that might argue, well, they're timeless. Well, yeah, that may be true. However, here's another thing to think about. If there is such a thing as a place, and there is the realm of the ancestors, then how could that coincide with reincarnation? Because what's the point of having a realm of the ancestors if they're just not even going to stay there? Imagine building a room but never using it. Why'd you build the
Exactly.
room? Like, imagine building a bathroom but you never use it. Why have a
Exactly.
bathroom?
And we get this from the Upanishads, right? In the Upanishads, which everyone thinks it teaches reincarnation, it totally doesn't. It says that once you pass from the physical body, what does the soul do? It takes on a more fine and subtle form.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and another big problem that I also seen is that people are really hyper attached to the physical body, right? And something that many if not, yeah, many people are very engrossed by is the thinking that this physical life is life. It is everything
Yeah,
of life.
even if they're spiritual, right? Even if they believe they're a soul, they
Yeah,
still think that this is it.
yeah, and I think that everything that is to happen in with anything that they have to do with is only going to be in this realm. But here's the part where they fail to understand. Like Chris was saying, you do have other subtle bodies. It's not just the physical. The physical body is but a shell. It is but a merely a workshop. So this life and has often been attributed as multiple different things. As in Manly P. Hall in The Flames of the Initiate, and I'm heavy paraphrasing here, is this life, this world, this little realm that we're encapsulated in is basically the um, classroom of God made for man. Uh, I'm not sure, I don't remember if that was the exact quote. I'm gonna have to look at it again, but that's generally the general gist. This world is a crucible, it's a forge, it is a workshop, and we are the craftsmen. And this body is a tool which we use to create those subtle bodies because it provides an anchoring point. It provides in a sense, a blueprint, right? As we go through life, we're also shifting and improving upon that blueprint. When doing so, we also create those subtle bodies. So then when we finally do graduate, we have a vessel that which we can use, right? And this
Exactly.
world is basically a womb. Many people are under the physical illusion that when we're born out of our mother's womb, our physical mother, that is, that's when we're born. That's the absolute beginning of our existence, give or take, right? And they think that, yeah, once we're born, we went through, infancy, went through childhood, we went through teenage years, and then we're in adulthood, and then we go forward from there, right? And then once we die, then that's it. But the reality of it is that despite us being physically born, no, actually, we're still not yet born.
Yep.
This world is still that womb. This
Yep.
world is still the place where we're gestating. So like, this is only like we haven't even begun life, technically speaking.
Exactly. In fact, we're in the realm of the dead. See Alvin Boyd Kuhn, the physical incarnation's death of the soul, basically because it comes into an entropic state of the negative polarity, right? So when that soul actually manifests in the physical realm, it kind of undergoes a death, right? This is actually death.
Hmm.
After this life is life. And that was the mystery of the Egyptian rites and the Egyptian mummies. They weren't making those mummies for the soul to return into the mummy. Zombie apocalypse of Pharaohs.
Oh man.
But the symbolicness, right? They were making it so that the soul, it was, and remember, rituals are not always the cause of everything. Like, oh, if this, without this ritual, your soul will turn to discombobulated fog. And rituals remind you of what takes place, what is happening in the microcosm, in the macrocosm. So the mummy was to remind them that they live on in that form outside of the physical body, that they come informed into their subtle body. And that was a reminder of that. You know, a lot of people teach that you're going back to just oneness, or Thomas H. Burgoyne talked against the ghastly, ghoulish doctrines of holograms, right? That, oh, anyone you see in a near-death experience or the afterlife are just your personal projections. They're illusions. Once they disappear, you become reincarnated. You know, obviously that's not true. He said, he warned against that. That's a very ghastly, grotesque view of the universe. It shows a lack of trust in the Creator and a lack of trust of the processes that we have to go through, and to know that we can trust ourselves and what we see in the spirit and whatnot. So we were kind of a little frazzled. You know, we just had recorded an hour and a half of this discussion, only to find out that it wasn't being recorded. So we actually just hit the record button and are trying our best to recorrelate all of this as we discussed it before. But let's just kind of start fresh and let's get to the main points. So there's a few points that we want to establish in this presentation. Number one is the goal, right? Self-conscious immortality of the soul. Onward and upward, eternal, immortal progression forever, right? And that doesn't leave room for retrogression. The second thing that we're trying to establish here is how karma has been misinterpreted. That, you know, the Oriental would say, you're being punished for something that you can't remember you did in a past life. And that if you think about the law of correspondence, would you punish your child for something without telling them why? Or would you explain to them what they did wrong, right? You don't just punish your children for stuff and be like, well, I seen them do this, you know, I'm going to punish them, but I'm not going to tell them why, because their soul's going to be able to interpret why, you know. No, you're never punished for anything that you don't know why. This is your first human birth. I don't, you know, a lot of people think they're an old soul. Well, you were a little baby. Every man was once a baby, right? Every man you see was just once a baby. And it was during that time that you received your initial I am, right? In Aries, I am, I think. This is when it was developed, right? So when you grow up and you develop your soul, you're preparing to live in those higher realms. And just because they're higher doesn't mean they're better, because there's a spectrum, right? There's lower astral realms. And we talked about how these lower astral realms to people appear to be physical, right? Due to the nature of the reality. You know, they wander these astral realms thinking that they still live. You know, this is a symptom of lack of development and cogniscience. So let's go ahead and read. Let's see. It's saying that there were those who could not understand how a spirit could come back to earth without being re-embodied in physical life. And there were many who could not imagine that any life could be which was beyond the cogniscience of the physical senses. The mental development of the masses, then, was as imperfect as it is now, but there was not then, as now, among the mental teachers of the people, an abnormal development of the imagination, which has since then led to the absurd interpretation of the doctrine of reincarnation. To have cited my ideas of the spiritual nature as a basis for the degradation of the soul of man to the brutal realm would have drawn from me a sharp rebuke, for what was taught that the pathway of the race was upward, not downward, and that the world of spirit held in itself the power to emancipate all souls from the thraldom of spiritual slavery. Right? So this is true, right? the savior, the agent, right? The savior is the world of spirit held in itself, the agent, the savior, the power to emancipate all souls from the thraldom of spiritual slavery. To suppose, therefore, that in the statements which were left on record as to the nature of the soul there is or ever was any basis for the present theory of transmigration is to pervert a great truth until it has become a grievous error. There's one view of the subject of reincarnation that I privately taught and had often endeavored to impress upon the intelligent Brahmins for many generations, which is this. Whenever, and this is what we were talking about last time, this is why people think reincarnation exists, right? This is going to kind of answer the question. So, whenever any great soul arises upon the earth, manifesting the attributes of wisdom and love, such a soul does not lose its power of expression upon earth, for there will ever be correlative spirits born there, through which the higher developed mind in the spirit can give expression to its own existence. I might even go further than this, for whenever the earth itself is able to evolve the intellectual or moral power of, let's say, a Gautama, a Plato, give me some names, Nick, some greats. Walter Russell.
Manly P. Hall, you have Pythagoras, you have George W. Carey, Mozart, Bach.
Okay, so the greats, right? We've established some greats, right?
Mm-hmm.
Once the universe has been able to evolve the intellectual or moral power of some of these people we've mentioned, it will ever after be able to produce equally fine specimens of soul evolution, if not their superiors. And in that sense, there will ever be reincarnations of the essential spirit of these people, although as individuals they can only return through the power of spiritual transfer of thought, which enables them to register upon the mentality of the mortals the wisdom that pertains to the world of the developed mind. So what this is saying is that once the universal womb has created a soul and that soul has progressed to a certain point, the universe can pick up where it's left off, create a vehicle in its nature for a new soul to inhabit that aligns with that progressive developed mind. And this can be mistaken for reincarnation, right, Nick? You know, people think that, you know, that might be, you know, Walter Russell's reincarnation, or, you know, we think that these people are coming back, right?
Yeah, oftentimes what really ends up happening is that they're just picking up echoes of those people, as well as not necessarily like their full essence, but whatever they were projecting, you know, whatever form, that's what they're picking up on. That's what they're really seeing, as opposed to just saying, oh, I see, you know, memories of this and that, and I'm able to do this and that. I must be them. Right?
Yeah, they're just picking up the astral echo,
the
memories. And we talked about how, you know, like, let's say that you were, you know, you all automatically had visions, or you remember being a sailor, you know, sailing the oceans.
Yeah.
And it turns out you're picking up on those astral residues of a previous person that may even have a similar chart to you, or a similar temperament, or somehow you picked up and perceived it, and it appears to you as memories, right? We have a lot of the reincarnation schools argue, well, these kids remember their past lives, or when we went into this home, I remembered, you know, I lived here, I was married to this person, I had a dog, I died in a fire, etc., etc. They're actually walking in and clairvoyantly picking up on past residues, and without discrimination are acquainting them with their own experiences, right?
Yeah.
These were not your experiences.
Yeah. And one interesting thing that just occurred to me right now was the concept of seemingly physical recreations, as in, like, there's been a bit of a phenomenon that sometimes people will either go into a museum and they'll see like a painting, and it's like a painting made from like 1600s or something, and it's like, this person looks exactly like me, and then you even have photos of people and everyday people. I'm not talking about like
Yeah.
major celebrity figures, which then of course there's more theories to think about, like, well, why is that the case? It's this or that. But no, just average everyday Joe Schmo. Even I personally experienced it myself,
Yeah.
with a friend of mine actually. And it's not even, and these like physical reuses aren't just, from long past supposed lives, but
Yeah. Recent.
yeah, like even recent. Like I remember going to an amusement park. This was in high school. I remember going to an amusement park. I was about to get on a roller coaster, right? And then like in the distance, I saw someone that looked exactly like a friend of mine from high school. I would sit with him at lunch. I would see him there. I'm like, oh shit, man, he's here too. So I sent him a text, saying like, "Hey man, I'm on this ride and look to your right or something." I forget what I said to him, but then he's like, "No, dude, I'm not there. I'm at my grandma's house, all the way in so and so place, nowhere near that place." And I have no reason to think he was lying. Um, so I was like, "Huh? There's a guy here that looked exactly like you. Like this guy's almost one to one with like a haircut. That's the only real difference." Damn, that was like so freaking weird. And even today, like you can sometimes see people who meet their supposed twin, like someone they have no relation to.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's because the universe creates copies,
hmm
and superiors.
hmm
So the universe is always in evolution, and that's beautiful to know that, the spiritual will or the fire is one of, from that soul category or ray, but then from that ray is many. So if someone's opened up lit a torch here on Earth, there's other monads that can come and get engulfed in that fire of being, and almost so much that it appears that they picked up exactly where they left off. But
hmm
that person that left, the individual right here, it says, it just says that they move on, right? They've
Yeah.
long moved on to upper dimensions, right? That just the physical appearances. That's where Thomas H. Burgoyne talks about the doctrine of appearances and the doctrine of truth. Like there is truth in appearance, right? Like it appears that that's a
hmm
reincarnation, or it appears that I have these memories of a past life,
hmm
or it appears that we're all one, or whatever you want to call it. But in the truth, it's like, okay, actually, that's not a reincarnation of Plato. That's a soul that picked up where he left off. Those weren't your memories. That's what you perceived from some similarity or some type of tap in from the astral residue, maybe an unconscious tap in or whatever. But you experience them as memories, but they're not your memories, right?
Yeah. It was just.
So here's what happens to people that have been seen in the East who suffer from the misinterpretation. So one effect of the doctrine of reincarnation of the souls of the dead that is felt with direful power in the spiritual world of India. Myriads who have left the physical life hover over the mortals of that country, seeking for opportunities to become re-embodied, in order that they may realize the promised relief from their imperfect development in the former earth life. They are earthbound to a degree that infects the mental atmosphere of its people with almost hopeless despair. For however intense may be their desire, they are never able to obtain the fancied reincarnation. Now, how different is that from what we're being taught in most Eastern and even Western esoteric schools, right? They've
hmm
really hammered down the reincarnation so much that we're becoming retrograded. We're becoming attached to the physical realm. We think that all of our punishments are going to, everything that bad that has happened to you in this life must have been for something you can't remember. There's no accountability. And most people, it says, they indeed seek the presence of opportunities innumerable through mental impress of the sexes, but beyond inciting an abnormal sexual impulse, they effect nothing toward producing the result desired. And in place of a new life in the physical world, they only succeed in debasing their spiritual natures by reoccurrence to the sensations and thoughts of earth. So what they actually do is they end up trying to vicariously live through the physical people that are still alive to get that physical type of experience of being on earth again, which is completely impossible because the soul's voltage is too high to be able to be replaced into another fetus, right?
hmm Yeah.
You have grown too much, and it even explains, Thomas H. Burgoyne explains, even if you die in adolescence, even if you die as a teenager, that don't mean you reincarnate.
Yeah.
You just go to the astral realm and you continue your journey onward and upward And that leads us to the fact that the personality does survive the tomb. And in the last conversation, we went into detail how this could be kind of different from a lot of the teachings that we've been kind of masqueraded with, but you actually have to have a personality to function outside of the physical body. So you actually take with you your experiences, your memories, your personality, because this whole realm is the garden of, you left the Garden of Eden to learn knowledge of good and evil, preferences, pain and pleasure, like and dislike, harmony and disharmony, experiences, challenges, etc. All of this has formed you and created a vessel that survives beyond the tomb, right? Because we were also talking about everyone's immortal. And in fact, people are even trying to become physically immortal, which we talked would be the harshest punishment to someone who's seen higher planes of existence. To think about being immortal forever physically would be a retardant in spiritual progress, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that everyone's immortal, it's just that not everyone's self-conscious immortal. And without the self-conscious, what happens in the afterlife? Most people don't know that they've crossed over. Some people just continue doing the same activities they did on Earth. They may see relatives that are already disembodied and moved on, but they won't think and cognize, oh, why is this person who's died around me? They'll just think, oh, well, I guess they're alive. They just kind of continue with it. And of course, there's guides and relatives that try to help, right? There's assistance. That's another thing that occultism has stopped, right? We've lost the care. We've lost this assistance and the support that we are under divine providence. We are under divine guidance. We are led every step of the way. Things are taken from us. Things are put in our path. At certain times during our life, certain knowledge is revealed to us by someone who cares about us intrinsically, individually.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that being said, this can also be viewed in the same way as the how and why we learn certain things at certain points in our lives. It's like I'm sure many people at many times, especially those who are on the esoteric path, the straight and narrow, and I've thought so too as well, is where I'm thinking to myself, man, if only I knew this stuff back in high school, if only I knew how to say do ritual magic back in high school, and if only I knew how to fast properly, how to interpret scripture correctly, right? Instead of making all those mistakes and falling into all those pitfalls, and what have you, or maybe having certain gifts happening to a certain point, like maybe meeting a specific person at one point, or maybe having a specific thing happen to you, right? Like these things happen at certain points for a reason. Sometimes, and then we also even get into, say, the idea of, say, ritual magic. 'Cause magic, you can do lots of things, from ranging from internal development to even influencing the world around you, right? This can also be viewed as when you do things, um, like even say incorrectly, but still somehow manage to bring good results. It's meant you are meant. It's pretty much you were meant to have those results, or sometimes even the other way around, where you try to do something and nothing happens. That could be for a variety of reasons, but more often than not, it's this orchestration of your entire life, whether or not it's something that you actively triggered or something that you ran into. Those things happen for a reason. For what reason? Sure, they can vary from person to person. It may not always necessarily be one. Well, I mean, kind of is. They're meant to be lessons of a kind, and there's a lot of nuances to that. It's never just like one universal thing. But I think I probably made my point here.
Yeah, man. Beautiful. So here it says here that, okay, here, the soul cannot progress toward the grade of an intelligent understanding of creative power as long as it seeks to re-enter the sphere, we're calling sphere like plane of earth, embodiment. And its purification can only be attained by rising above the conceptions of the perverted thought or the atmosphere of sensuality or deception, right? So we'll talk about this later, but we talked about how the theosophical schools have kind of taken gender out of the soul, right? They say that your soul is genderless. You're a man today, next life you'll be a woman, then a man, then a woman, then a man, then a woman, then a man, then a woman. And sooner or later you'll figure it out, right? But once you're out of the physical reincarnation loop, the false reincarnation loop that's not even true, then you're what are you, Nick?
I don't know, man. I think I might be a a cloud shaped like a fluffy bird or something, man.
Yeah, like a fluffy bird or something. Or, like I was thinking more of like a, like a, like a, like a. I don't know, dude. That's exactly why it's completely incomprehensible. They've given us this
Yeah.
roadblock, and we're
Yeah.
gonna prove it in the light of Egypt that your gender was predetermined before your physical birth. Your physical form is a projection of what's inside of you. So,
Yeah.
if you're a man, if you got your thing, you're probably your soul's a man, and if you're a woman and you can give birth and you're womanly, and you're probably a woman's soul, and that's for eternity, right?
Yeah.
And we can talk about that in a little bit. We'll talk about how gender's eternal, and please touch on the fact that the Hermetica states that gender's on all planes of existence,
Yeah.
not just the physical realm. Because when we split from the monad from love and wisdom, we had our male and female split, right? There is a half of you, right? You are split from your divine feminine monad.
Yeah.
However, as you come down the ladder into physical realm, you manifest as a man because you are that polarity before physical incarnation, because the physical is the effect of the internal cause.
Yeah, as the Egyptians say, and I'm sure many people have heard this saying by now if they're following this channel. Um, and it's not they don't just say this because it sounds cool. Yeah, it kind of does, I will admit, but they say it because it actually has meaning. It's as above, so below, as within, so without. And there's a reason why it says, and it's that that saying right there. It's self-explanatory. Everything that's above you is below. Everything that's outside of you is within you, and that within is also referring even to your own spirit. Because everything here is a essentially a projection, right?
How much corruption can actually come from repeated extended belief that you are a genderless soul inhabiting a man's body? Can you imagine the spiritual harm that can come from that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And actually, just to touch upon quickly, because one thing that comes to mind when I think that when it comes to the reversal and perversion of everything that's going on, and you especially see this in the West as well, um, is how everything got so deeply twisted, right? So when thinking about things like, say, the Kabbalah tree of life, right? I forget. I remember when we were talking in our practice dry run. I forget how I started the conversation here, but essentially what we're seeing is pretty much the Clifoff poisoning of society, of humanity. So the Clifoff, for those who don't know, is essentially the tree of death in Kabbalah, right? So in Kabbalah, there is a tree of life, right? And on this tree of life is basically, how everything should be, right? Is where truth is truth, a man is a man, a woman's a woman, right? Up is up, down is down, left is left, right is right, right? Where it's survival of the fittest, right? And the Clifoff is pretty much the um, reversal of that, because as adherence with the law of polarity, there is, where there's up, there's down, where there's left, there's right, man, woman, light, dark, etc. So if there is a tree of life, then consequently that means there's a tree of death. So what's on this tree of death? Well, like I said, it's basically a reversal, right? Take a look at Western society of this day, where victimhood is celebrated, right? Where you have people always trying to have the most kind of self-victimization of whatever, whether they're disabled, whether they have some kind of um, um, whether they have autism, whether they're this or that, right? There are all these labels, and whenever someone is like actually in a stable place, where they're strong and going on a clear path, they're reviled. They're oftentimes shunned and tossed out.
Yep.
And truth has become hated, and lies become celebrated. Those who are you consider weak on some level are elevated. And yeah, like I said,
Yep.
the strong are kicked out, right?
It
And that,
reverses and mimics, reverse and mimic, mimic, reverse, right? They
yeah,
take the truth and they disassociate it, right? Like instead of talking about the holy love and wisdom monad, right? That the monad becomes a dyad, love and wisdom, male and female, and produces the angelic host or the Elohim, which are our angel parents, right? Thomas H. Burgoyne talks about how we all, not just individually, but some of us have collective, right? Not just one per one, but we have angelic parents that emanated from the cosmic pleroma. And when they created our essence as a one, and Adam, Eve together, right? And then through their sexual expression, split us, male and female, on our way down, right?
Yeah.
That's why we feel that why we want marriage, we want children, we want to find our partner, etc., because we want to make the two one again, right? But that doesn't mean that you abolish the separation of the two. That doesn't mean that we're not male or female. Or you can't say, like a woman to have divine masculine features is not positive. Like say with men with all this new age stuff, it's just like, I'm a man, I've reached my divine feminine nature, and it totally missed the hermetic science, right? Because you're actually supposed to concentrate and focus your being. If you have a masculine ray, you need to focus on that ray and harness that energy. If you're a woman, you want to harness your femininity, your passiveness, your wisdom. I mean, love, right? Love. And then you want to, and of course, Thomas Burgoyne says now the qualities are found within each other, right? Like you do have an internal feminine polarity that balances your masculine ray, and so does the woman. But to elevate it and want to excruciate it and make it bigger is not what hermetic science is all about, right? It's not about, a lot of people, I think a lot of these codes or mysteries are there to just kind of block people on the path, man, because going through all this, like we were all thinking we're going to reincarnate, we're punished for things we don't know we did, God's impersonal, I could be a woman next incarnation. And that if you don't believe in, let's say you don't believe in reincarnation, you just believe that you're one. You believe that your individuality is extinguished once you go back to it. And that's counterproductive, right? So that's just a lot of confusing topics, Nick. I mean, look at all the stuff that's pretty much been preached on the rooftops for quite a long time. And it was C.C. Zane who says that basically it's not that they're bad teachers, it's not that they can't gain some type of spiritual significance from it. It's not that you can't learn from those books anymore, right? It's just that they didn't pierce the illusions of matter, and they didn't see into the divine to be able to correctly interpret. So they're just interpreting the best that they can with the knowledge that they're given. So we're not telling you guys to throw out your books, it's very hard to even find, like he said, you can't, I'm gonna read this right now. So this is Light of Egypt. I'm gonna share my screen, so in case anyone wants to follow along. Over the Occident, so this is Facts and Fantasies about Reincarnation. So over the Occident has swept from the dreamy oriental skies during the past 45 years a balmy breeze of metaphysical speculation, laden with the aroma of the choicest flower of Eastern thought. Upon the West it has had a salutary influence, warming the chill winds that blow so constantly from the icebergs of the practical that they threaten to force upon us frigid climates of materialism. The more spiritual inhabitants of the Occident were quick to recognize the advantage to be derived from the East, and open wide windows of their souls to the genial influx, absorbing often without discrimination all that the aromatic zephyrs wafted to their shores. Unfortunately, the flowers of Oriental thought are not all friendly to the human race, for amid the wholesome varieties whose perfumes become invigorating tonic to the spiritual nature are to be found other noxious fumes, odors, and poisons that atrophy the soul. Another efference of the subject of this lesson, scarce less deadly in the character, has a most fascinating fragrance that intoxicates as a subtle stimulus. Its effect is to interest in things spiritual, to give high ideals and lofty aspirations, but at the same time to dim the spiritual sight and confuse the mind. It numbs the senses of the soul by refuting their evidence, and sinks the intellect into a state of dull apathy where rather than make the effort to acquire knowledge at first hand, it is content blindly to accept the statements of others. So thoroughly has Western occultism become intoxicated with the insidious teaching of what, Nick? Human reincarnation.
Whoa.
Like, is what? The insidious teaching? What?
Yeah.
I thought, I thought we're all, I thought I was, I thought I was an Egyptian pharaoh last life,
Oh
like,
shit. I thought I was I don't know, some Russian king or something, or maybe a squire, and I tripped and fell into a latrine or something, and that's how my last life ended. It was kind of
yeah, man.
embarrassing.
And I'm really trying to work really hard in this life so that, my next life, I can have, brand new parents and brand new this and a whole
Yeah.
new life, and we're
Yeah,
all coming back together. One time your brother was this time he's your brother, last time he was your cousin, last time he was your grandpa, like, we're all
yeah, and
coming back and mingling, but at the same time we're seeing ancestors in the astral realm. We're getting guided by the ancestor realm, that a whole realm in the Upanishads that says once you die from here, you go to the realm of the ancestors. Once you go to the realm of the ancestors, you go to the realm of those with divine wisdom. Once you go from the realm of the divine wisdom, you go up to this ladder realm that just keeps ascending. But how are the ancestors there? I mean, they're going to reincarnate soon. They must have a time clock or something. They're going to come back as an infant and wear Huggies again or diapers.
yeah,
Back to
yeah,
diaper bag.
yep. Back to doing literally everything all over again. All those life lessons. That's another key thing. All those life lessons you learned, all those challenges and trials and tribulations that you went through, all these tests, these connections you made, all these things you built up. Imagine going to a workshop. Like I think I don't recall if
Yeah.
we said it off camera or
Do
on
the
camera,
clock
but
one. Do the clock factory. Yep.
yeah. Imagine going to like a workshop and you start building up a clock. You put all the time and effort into it. You make it as ornate as possible. You get the best materials, the best mechanisms. You take the time and effort to make sure everything works just perfectly. You put it all together. It's done. It's finished. It's furnished. It works. And then you either just walk out the workshop, leave it behind, never touch it again, or you just smash it. You just smash it right
Yep.
there and do it all over again.
And Nick, this was an ego blow to me too, because like I'm not perfect either. Like when we've been studying this for like 5 years now. I think this is about 5 years since I changed my belief and research to more of this. Because before that, I was all ready for it, ready for reincarnation, ready for karma. I don't know who I was last time. Trying to remember, trying to conceive of being a woman next life. Maybe like that's what they were teaching, right? We're gonna be a man, a woman, a cat, a dog. You might be we're on this train, and it's all the Anunnaki, right? The Anunnaki have devised this all to make sure that you're trapped in false light, and they're going to make holograms of your beloved ancestors and people that have passed on before you. They have devices, right?
Yeah, they
They're going to make
definitely do.
these artificial intelligent they know exactly when you're going to die, so that they know exactly that they're going to turn on the projector and make you think that you're seeing your mom or your dad or all this stuff. And then they're going to, right when you get duped into it, they're going to trap you, and then they're going to throw you back into a baby. Right?
No, and like, no, little Jimmy, oh, you died? Oh, what a shame. Oh, okay, I'm gonna turn you around 3 times, maybe grab at the ankles, shake out all your lunch money, grab your wallet. Okay, cool, you got that? Oh, sweet, $5. And all right, you see that pregnant woman over there? Okay, you're gonna go possess that fetus. Off you go. Up, jump.
Yep.
There we go.
Yep, because remember, Blavatsky and them, they were just teaching. And like he said, remember, we're saying that it's not that, you could still learn from them, right? It's just that they were handicapped in their progression, that they weren't able to. But the problem is, like they were teaching, right? But you have to reincarnate multiple times. You have to go. Your ancestors aren't there, so they're obviously just holograms.
That's a sorry, I don't know if you're finished there.
No, go ahead, man.
Yeah, because the one thing actually as well, and this is something that's very prominent here is the concept that's oftentimes being pushed, and even beforehand was that this was placed as a prison, right? That if you're here, you are trapped, right? And that's not to say there aren't traps. Obviously there are, hence why we're even having the discussion to begin with. But the biggest thing is that saying that, oh, this whole life, this whole process here, it's a trap. You're a soul that's in a prison, and like we were just talking about, like reincarnation, coming back over and over again. You die, you go, you see a projection. It's like, oh, you're so good this life. How about you go back and do it again? And you have to go like, oh, okay, fine, and you just waltz back while sulking. But yeah, the idea that this place is well, again, I will say this: this is not completely false. That this place is like
Philosophically, we're light imprisoned in matter on a figurative, philosophical, poetic matter.
yeah, and also
It's
that
poetry.
yeah, and the fact that this place is a simulation, right? Like people are going so far off into that um thing that, and while yes, it is a simulation of a kind. That's not to say that there's no truth in that, but most people, at least is the impression that I'm getting, they're going so far off into that end where they think it's like a sci-fi movie, The Matrix, or cyberpunk, for those who are familiar with that genre, where you're still in a meat suit outside, but it's like hooked up to an apparatus.
Insane. They think some guy, a physical entity, created the simulation.
Yeah, so they think that it's a completely artificial, technological simulation. It is a simulation of a kind, but not of that sense. It is a projection. This realm has been called a dream. And yes, in a sense, that's true, right? It is a dream of a kind. It is a construct, but not a technological kind, right?
Yeah,
So
it's an organic construct.
yeah. So there
And
is
no, go ahead, man, because that's exactly what that's the case, right? Because in fact, be careful what you believe, because your beliefs indicate your behaviors and actions, and if you think about it, simulation theory definitely probably attracts a lot of psychopaths.
yeah.
And
And man, that's the other irony of that thing, of that whole way of thinking. If you think this life, this world, this realm is a trap, it's a prison, well, because the way your subconscious works, and this is just the basis of whenever we do magic, of whatever kind, like ritual magic, whether you're trying to do self work or you're trying to bring something into your life, whatever it is, the whole principle of how magic works is that it works based on what where you're subconsciously programmed with. That's kind of how it works. So if you're like really believing, your subconscious really believing this place is a trap, that is a prison, well, lo and behold, that's kind of what ends up becoming for you. Not, and then this takes away
yep,
from what it's supposed to be, which is supposed to be a classroom. It's just meant to be a forge, a crucible. Place is a womb. You're meant to grow, even though you've been born into a physical body. I think we already talked about during actually recording here. Even though you're born into a physical body, right? You're technically not born yet. Well, none of us here are born. We're still fetuses.
we're in the making.
Yeah. This place is just the beginning, right? Just like this is the part where like people get so enamored with the physical world that they think this is, but
Yeah,
no,
they
it's not.
think in order to, it's because they are partially correct. Like
Yeah.
Conversation Burgoyne said, the reason, how are they correct? Yes, it is true. Consciousness cannot function without a body. Okay, cool. So then everyone runs with that, and if you're material minded, you'd be like, all right, well, obviously consciousness is re-embodied eternally. But no, that's not what it's saying, because your subtle body has senses.
Mm-hmm.
You're
Yeah.
like we were talking about, your astral hand can hold an astral cup. Your astral body can go through an astral door. Your astral body can talk to another astral entity. When it comes to physical, communication with the physical, right? It says only through thought transference and subtle influence, right? But
Mm-hmm.
in the astral realm, if the astral door is an astral door, you open the astral door. If you live in an astral house, it's because it's made of astral materials, and your astral mind is constructing it. This is why in these realms, which we actually have to get to that point from Light of Egypt now. We're going to go dive right into Light of Egypt and going into the chapter on reincarnation. Do you have that for me? What that was? Let's see. I have it right.
Um,
Chapter 1, page 44, right?
yeah.
So
I don't recall if I wrote down the page number or like the PDF page because those are going to be
44.
different.
We're zooming there right now.
Yeah. So yeah, remember guys, this physical body that you have, this life, this is only the beginning. Your body is just a shell, right? It's just meant to be a temporary anchor to keep your consciousness, your soul, like stable, relatively speaking. Obviously, there are people that it's possible to get unstable, but it's just meant to be a framework. It's just a blueprint.
Yes.
You're still building your subtle bodies for that next life,
And,
right?
this gives a lot of hope, Nick, right? Because think
Mm-hmm.
about people that have lost someone they're like They were too young. Now, explain to people why now it doesn't matter. Like when we've said, oh, they died so young. That could
Yeah.
be kind of a depressing thought, right? Like that makes, well, hope they reincarnate.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They got to live that life,
Oh, yeah.
Talk
No.
about how it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Because when we do die, regardless of whatever part of life we're in, whether it's we died as a baby, like a physical baby, or we
Now
die.
don't go that way because I have some. That's the only time where you actually reincarnate the physical.
Oh, okay. All right. Good. That's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
sorry
right.
about that, dude. Because that was in the next one. He gets into this, man.
Okay.
He
Yeah.
talks about like the three. There's only three little modes where you had no actual comprehensive experience of physical life, born still, etc. Born so deformed and disability decapitated that you had no fair shot, or if you are an actual seventh dimensional spiritual master, Christified, and are undertaking an intense spiritual journey that has the 100% necessity of physical re-embodiment. So if you are as a baby, etc., reincarnation is actually something necessary, but usually even as a child up, you still transit. Now go ahead and continue what you were saying.
Yeah.
Why if you
Yeah.
die young it doesn't matter, kind of.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah. So yeah, if you die as a child, if you die as a teenager or a young adult, like at 20s or something, right? You're the process doesn't end there. It's not like, oh, that sucks. You gotta play the game all over again. No, what ends up happening is that you still end up progressing to another realm. But whatever work that, in a sense, you would have been doing here, it just continues elsewhere. You just pretty much continue where what you've already built
And
up by
there's
then.
people there. There's people
Hmm.
that are attracted based on your vibration, your mission, your soul tribe, and there's foster parents up there. Right? We
Mm.
have to understand, why is there foster parents up there? Well, number one, because in the astral realm, the sexual nature of male and female, yes, there's still partnerships in the astral realm. If you haven't figured that out yet, yes, if you will wait for your partner to die to come and greet you there, or you will be greeting your partner or your spouse, etc. And Swedenborg talks about some of the issues when it comes to post-mortem relationship issues based on multiple marriages, multiple partners, spouses, remarrying, widows, etc. This gets all funky and gunky in the astral plane because these all need to be resolved.
Hmm.
However, with the sexual act in the astral plane doesn't produce children, but produces thought forms and new states of being. But there's an opportunity to actually take care of children who have died, crossed over, and have no correct connection with relatives who ancestors or their parents have not. Right, if your child dies before you, then someone has to take care of them up there,
Yeah.
basically. And it's talked about how there are those people that take care of the children until they grow up in the astral realm, and sometimes they go straight to celestial, dude.
Oh. Wow. Yeah, man. Crap. I lost my train of thought here, but
Well, you were just kind of explaining how we
yeah.
continue our work. It's not
Yeah.
as bad as we think. That thought used to haunt us all. He died.
Yeah.
What happened? What's going? That's so unfair.
Yeah.
And it actually turns out that it actually isn't unfair. They're
Yeah.
actually elevated to a higher sphere and continue their life. They still get to go to school. They get to meet a partner, a spouse. They get to grow up. They miss their family. They're not like in a dream world where they forget who they were, where they were. Of
Mm.
course they miss their physical embodied life, but they move on.
Yeah. Yeah. Because one thing, um, because in many ways it's almost kind of cruel, like especially when someone like dies or maybe it's like was suffering from a sickness, right? Like oftentimes, yeah, you don't necessarily want them to leave, but then to wish for them to stay kind of like trapped in the mires of the physical world. And in some ways, it's somewhat cruel, right?
Yep.
Not sure, of course, like I'm not talking about people that are ignorant of how things work, right? Because, but for those that do know and for someone to stay trapped in material incarnation, that's like, imagine you want to like, imagine like just graduating, like trying to graduate school, right? Or trying to us get a promotion or something, and then not because someone really likes having you around, and you try moving on, they try to like trap you, pull you back in. It's like, no, don't go to the next level. Just stay here with me, stay in this with me, even though like there's nothing for you here, or like you can't learn anything new. Now you got to move on. Um, uh,
Yeah, man. I mean, and it's from lack of knowledge, right? We're
yeah.
fearful, right? Because we think, wow, your parent, right? It's not that like, wow, I might not never see my parent again because by the time I get there, they're going to be reincarnated, or they're going to be burning in the lake of fire, or they're so high up in the celestial spheres that they can't. People don't know how near people actually are to you, and how post life or post death, because we talked about how the physical realm is actually death of the soul, and how death of the actually entering life, hence resurrection, but how that's still very near and dear. A lot of the obligations and a lot of the times the people that pass on, some of their focuses are their people still embodied.
Hmm.
You're going to be
Yeah.
worried about your family. You're going to be looking after things. You're going to have now you can't really interfere, but you can associate through thought transference and send good vibes and whatnot. And of course, you'll be excited and waiting for people to when people are coming in and out. And that's why CC Zane even talks about the vocations and occupations on the other side. There's jobs.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
actually have a career path, but it's not a physical career path. Most of the time, you could be part of a special unit that helps with people in violent traumatic deaths, and you have to go pick them up. Someone has to come.
Hmm.
CC
Yeah.
Zane talks about stories of someone died while riding a horse. The horse died. It was a bomb, and he's still on the horse because the horse died too. And he just continues galloping. He didn't know that he just got blew up. He's still on his horse. He's still in his body. He doesn't know why people around him don't see him or are ignoring him. Sometimes the soul automatically takes to, my family has abandoned me. My wife doesn't talk to me anymore. My kids hate me now. I'm going to go leave and crawl in a ditch. This is things that can happen, right? You can be discombobulated, and people who suffer mental trauma, of course, the universe always sends someone, right? There's guides, relatives, spirits that come. And that's why once you're on the lower astral realm and you've died, sooner or later you're going to meet someone. It could be someone that's died, and you could remember, wait a minute, if you're here and I'm here, and I remember that you died 20 years ago, what happened? And usually this is a beautiful, beautiful reunion and a beautiful awakening, because this is the true past life memory. This is when you're in post life and you remember your previous life, and then you acknowledge your new life. And that is when you take a sigh, a breath in, a breath out, and are filled with the supreme knowledge that you could have got on Earth, right? You could have, it's different for everyone, but just imagine that, right? You didn't know what was going to happen or what was going to happen. You died and you're somewhere else, right? You think you're alive until you meet someone, right? And then you're
Hmm.
like, oh, and then they tell you, Nick, you have died.
Oh no. Oh
Like, oh.
no. What horrible fate has befallen upon me.
But you're still alive.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
let's see. Go ahead.
I was actually gonna make a reference as well back to again, I'm trying to recall if I already talked about this during here or the false
Yeah, I
recording.
know.
Yeah, shit. But yeah, the one thing that's I'm just talking about the concept of truth hidden in plain sight, right? Like when it comes to these truths, right? They're always hidden in like entertainment, right? Whether it's like movies, TV shows, whether it's like storybooks or comics, video games, you name it, whatever form of entertainment. There's usually truths hidden in plain sight, right? Um, Even if it's not to their complete um, correct form, but the concept it's still lingered there because I've seen many like movies, TV shows right? Where it's where characters are usually going through some kind. You have your characters, right? They'll be going through this strange thing, right? Like sometimes they'll be in this place, like in a like an asylum or a hospital or
Mhm.
whatever, and they're going through this like very hellish thing. So these are kind of typically be like horror themed forms of media, and they're wondering like, why are we going through this stuff? Like, what is going on? They're trying to find all these mysteries, and there's always these subtle little hints, and only till the end of the movie they find out, oh, the reason why you're going through this because you died, and this is hell. You and all these little hints that you
Yeah.
seem to pick up on. These are things you did in the past life, and that's why you're here, right? And they didn't even realize that they died
Yep.
until that revelation at the end.
And a lot of these, if everyone's curious, where does this kind of understanding come from? It actually comes from, Hermetic schools, Western and Eastern, and also a lot of it comes from Swedenborg, the great seer of the 14th century, who was a great seer into and explored these realms wholeheartedly. And in fact, before he did that, he was just an inventor, a polymath, a scientist, a musician. He was a genius scientist whose eyes were opened into the great beyond and actually communicated and experienced all of these things. So a lot of movies are based on the Swedenborgian school of thought, which is non-reincarnation, eternal progression, and syncretism, basically.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, for anyone who missed last one because we didn't record it, but I said that Lost had a really good cosmology. That's kind of similar to what you were saying. The show series Lost, it's really good at kind of explaining and putting together how things work. Um, so Thomas H. Burgoyne, what did you say about reincarnation and reincarnation? Let's have a look. So probably no truth has been more completely inverted by the ignorant and concealed by the learned than that of reincarnation. In every age, it has been thought necessary by the priesthood to overawe the uneducated masses by some species of pious jugglery, and the popular theory of reincarnation, as understood and taught at the present day, is a typical example of truth perverted. By reincarnation, we mean, as now currently understood, the doctrine of the rebirth of the human soul in various forms and personalities in different ages upon the same planet, and even gender, right?
Hmm.
Reincarnation doesn't even let you like at least continue on in your gender. You have to switch it most of the time, right? So you're confused, right? You're like, I'm a genderless soul. I am in the body of a man. When I die, I'm a genderless soul, and everything I see is a hologram. The aliens are after me with high technology that project my relatives into my brain that I don't have anymore.
And actually, what's funny about that? It's actually really similar to the concept of not of like complete materialistic nihilism or just atheistic viewpoints. Like, yeah, you live, you're just a bunch of biochemical reactions in a accidental creation of a body that has very specific, designs, right? It's all evolution. You were a monkey man, and when you die, you just go through this biochemical electrical experience, and then afterwards, you zip, you're done. It's over. It's nothingness. It's just the empty black
Yeah.
nothing.
So even the Western, so that's the thing. Even when you thought you were being enlightened on a step, right? It happens in stages, but unfortunately, this is actually corruption.
Hmm.
I'm no longer, I'm going to stop seeing this as, oh, well, it was a gate. They were just trying to, keep the ignorant. No, this is evil. At this
Hmm.
point, they're taking away your creator. They're taking away any intention, care, or reciprocal relationship you have with it from a giving and receiving standpoint from you and the creator. They're taking away your gender. They're keeping you materially bounded, right? Illuminated Brahmanism said what happens to them when they die? They hover over their country waiting for physical re-embodiment. It never happens. And so what do? They start siphoning and vicariously living through base senses of the physical embodied people. So
Hmm.
they become vampires because they
Yeah.
didn't move on. And we also wanted to say, really explain this, Nick, because when we say move on, it kind of seems like, well, move on, right? You don't have a body. Well, you're still going to have a body. So what are you moving on from? Deception and animalistic sensuality. Now, does that mean there's no sex in the astral plane? Does that mean that there's no gender in the astral plane? We're moving on? No. It just means that the base desires are transmuted and you're lifted up to a higher plane. Where, what does it say in the Hermetica? This is really important, Nick, because it says it manifests in different ways on the higher planes, right? It's the tools are still there, but they're for different purposes.
Yeah. So just reading from the Kabbalion here. So yeah, gender is everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes. So the principle embodies the truth that there is a gender manifest in everything. The masculine and feminine principles ever at work. This is not only true on the physical plane, but of the mental and even the spiritual planes. On the physical plane, the principles manifest as sex, biological sex, as as we were taught. But on higher planes, it takes on higher forms. But the principle is ever the same. No creation, physical, mental, or spiritual, is possible without this principle. An understanding of its laws will throw light on many a subject that has perplexed the minds of men. And the principle of gender works ever in the direction of generation, regeneration, and creation. Everything. And every person contains the two elements or principles, or this great principle within it, him or her. So,
and it discussed how the inner cause is the effect of your outer body.
Yeah, it is because everything here is a projection of one. Like, it is a projection of that monad, and in turn, of course, this effect also echoes even within ourselves, right? Like, if we, for example, if we start becoming, I guess, more demonic in nature, lower, it starts reflecting in our body, right? This is why oftentimes we see the psychosomatic phenomena of, people with depressive states tend to have, illnesses start manifesting, right? People who are in better states of mind, they have, they're healthier, right? And this is just one example. There are many different things that coincide with that, but.
So, like I said, Nick, I mean, really hate to say it, man. It just looks like, next time around, it just looks like you're not going to be able to be a woman.
Damn, my dreams are ruined. I've been dreaming about that the entire life, and now it's never gonna happen. Dang.
God darn, yeah, man. I was really
looking forward to that.
I was looking forward to it too, man. Like, that sucks.
Dang it.
Just kidding. We're just kidding. Obviously, man, that was a completely traumatic lesson to learn, man. It was traumatizing to hear that, the soul's genderless, that, in your past life you could have been a woman, or your next life, I always felt, like you are who you are and you feel what you feel, and your physical body is a pretty good mirror of what you are on the inside. And there has been a spiritual attack, even in occultism, right? We go to Western esotericism and Indian teachings for enlightenment, not only to find out that they're actually retarding our progress, right? Because it talks about how, the doctrine of reincarnation has caused malady, actual problems in our spirit, right? The doctrine of non-gender has caused issues, problems in our spirit. The doctrine that your individuality will be extinguished once you return to God. This sounds horrible.
Yeah, like, and they're
Who
really
wants that, dude?
I know, right? Like, and this is even pushed forward, especially in the West, when it comes to, like, say, body dysmorphia. It's like, oh, yeah, I was born in a body of a man or a body of a woman, but my they'll say something like, well, my neurons were messed up or made in a specific way, so like I'm really a woman in a man's body, and they try to perverse it. Like I was talking earlier with the Klifoff, that's one of the ways they really try to reinforce that, and they're really pushing that. Fortunately, at least what I've observed, there's obviously a pushback to that, but the fact that it gone so far and it's taken so many people to like into
But
its
even in the
thrall.
spirit realm, like, who would have thought, that this was happening under our noses in
Yeah,
esotericism?
I know, right? Yeah, like,
Because, that's what they're teach, right? Your genderless soul, it goes back and forth, and once you're finally done with the samsara reincarnation, all right, we'll go into what's samsara. Samsara is zodiac, guys, the wheel of life. Come on, guys, it's not trapped in eternal reincarnation. Samsara is going down into the zodiac and experiencing all the 12 intelligences and all the karmic and all the ups and downs and all the life's gravy. I mean, that happens during every life. Like, every plane you go to has a zodiac. Even the next astral plane. Okay, here's a great example, Nick. When you wake up outside, you go outside, and based on the physical weather, you decide to put on a jacket or not, yes?
most likely if it's cold.
Yeah, if it's cold, what are you going to do? Wear a sweater, right?
Yeah.
If it's hot, going out with a t-shirt and shorts, maybe, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, in the astral realm, it's different weather, okay? It's not physical weather. In fact, the seasons are almost like it's like a blend of all of them. Like in the astral realm, you don't really feel it's cold outside
Yeah,
or
like
it's hot outside. No, that's physical realm. Why would you wear certain clothes in the astral realm? Is to protect you from astral weather, inner plane weather. And what does Thomas H. Burgoyne say about inner plane weather? Inner plane weather affects you more than physical weather would ever affect you. Because in the astral plane, and this happens in the physical plane too, because don't forget, in the physical plane, you're still a citizen of the inner plane. You're just like an embryo. You're waking up gradually there. As you're diminishing here, you're waking up there, right? So on that inner plane weather, you're instead of dressing up for coldness, you're actually combating the nostalgic rays of Saturn that day. Or it's jolly outside. It's depressing. It's cold. Give me some names here. We're talking astral moods and weather instead of physical weather. So let's just get some names out there. Melancholic,
fearful,
spooked,
amorous,
energetic, amorous, yeah, sensual. Well, yeah, but sensual in a different way, right? Because in the astral realm, you still have a physical body. It's just made of protoplasmic astral atoms.
Yep.
Right. So there still are these desires and whatnot. But when we're talking about inner plane weather, we're kind of talking about like the feeling you have at Christmas. Like, what's your inner plane weather around December? You feel the spirit.
Yeah. Like
the Christmas spirit, they call it.
Yeah.
And then Easter, you have an inner plane weather phenomenon there too, don't you? You feel resurrected, renewed, newness, curious, wonderment, right?
Yeah.
And then what about like that Saturnian, that Saturnine vibes of melancholy or nostalgia or excitement, overly excitement, or these are inner plane weather conditions that you will actually be equipped in the astral plane to deal with. So here's another example. In the physical realm, why do you have an apartment or house? Like, what are the main reasons?
Well, go ahead.
Physical conditions, right? Hot, cold, rain, sun, and privacy, right?
Yep.
Well, in the astral plane, you have a house too, but it's not for physical conditions. It's to give you a sense of privacy and also block certain astral vibrations and intrusiveness from other entities that inhabit the same plane. So you still have a house in the astral plane, but it serves a different purpose. It's no longer to protect you from the cold winters. It's no longer there to protect you from the sun or to get, you could say comfort. In the astral plane, your house is there to organize and condense and concentrate your energies, which actually kind of happens in the physical realm too. See, the physical realm, house or apartment, does fulfill some of these check marks that the astral house does. It's just that we have an additional one.
Yep.
The weather.
Oh, yeah.
The physical realm, the nature of reality around us. When we're on the inner plane, we need a house to block us from other people's influences, privacy, and astral weather currents that, based on your chart, could be pretty harsh. Harsh climate here, you could say snows half the year. Harsh climate there is, we're getting hit with some melancholy. I'm getting hit with aspiration energy. There's just different types of weather there is what it is.
Yeah, in many ways you can think of it as the physical realm, which is more of Saturnian, more of Saturn's realm, where Saturn does impose more on conditions, right? But once you leave, suddenly, the game changes a little bit. Saturn has less of an influence there, so now you have these other more subtle influences coming in, like maybe you're dealing with Jupiterian weather, Mercurian weather, Venusian, Martian, right? Like these things start becoming much more exaggerated. Where they still have an influence here, right? Like Chris was talking about, like sometimes certain parts of the season, you feel a certain way, right? People make the argument, oh, it's because it's cloudy. Well, sure, like the cloudiness, maybe the fog, right, can incite a sense of mystery, or even just yeah, nostalgia,
And once you
depression.
tap into those mysteries, once you start changing your internal weather, you can actually affect
Yeah.
the outer weather. In fact, the outer weather is an effect of the inner weather. So
Yeah,
that
the
pollution, those clouds, and those rainstorms, they're coming from inside.
yeah, like weather magic is absolutely a thing, and it's event and it's absolutely amazing as to like how extreme it can get. Like say like, oh, I really want it to be sunny. So next thing you know, a little while later, it's like you have suns like completely cloudless days for weeks on end. And even like recently, I've noticed like at least at the time of this recording, I've noticed that everything's kind of we've been like getting hit like heavy with stuff, right? There's like a bit of a bad transit. I haven't not specified exactly what it was. I think it might be with Mercury opposing Neptune. That's when I was looking at the chart, and I was just me doing it at a glance. But I've noticed like the weather suddenly got like very cloudy. Like suddenly it's raining more. There's thunderstorms
Yeah.
more. And then before it was like everything was great. Like everything felt amazing. It was like sunny days. Like I was able to go out and like do some proper grounding without getting soaked by the rain and whatnot. But now it's like, yeah, sure, you can make the argument that, oh yeah, we're getting more so into the winter season or into fall, which okay, fine, yeah, sure. That's not to say that that's can't
They have
be a
a
thing.
like a
But
Piscean effect, a yin and yang effect on our internal and outer weather affects each other. Our
yeah,
internal weather affects our outer weather. The outer weather, collective outer weather affects our internal weather. Now,
mhm,
as there's internal weather, there is also internal traffic. Look outside your window, you might see some cars in your neighborhood driving by. Look
mhm.
within your inner window and you might see some people walking. There's people inside of you.
Whoa,
There's people inside of your plane. There are citizens of another plane and you are the highway. You're on
yeah,
the highway right now and they see you and you can't see them because you're not awake inside. So
yeah,
we have to become awake inside. So based on this whole, so if reincarnation isn't true and we go to the higher realms, we will have to get into the term that C.C. Zane and Thomas H. Burgoyne explained it as instantaneous transference. So instantaneous transference is meaning as soon as you die here, you instantaneously transfer into the astral realm instantaneously. And sometimes, usually in the beginning, it's on the lower planes that look very similar to this. So Thomas H. Burgoyne goes on to explain, in every bundle of theological chaff, there is undoubtedly concealed a grain of genuine truth. This is particularly the case with this doctrine of reincarnation. Up to a given point, its teachings are those of truth itself, but beyond this point, the doctrine of rebirth into physical condition becomes one of the greatest illusions with which the mystical student has to deal. To those who are purely upon the plane of appearances, it possesses an almost irresistible attraction, because it appears to account in most rational and philosophical manner for the wide differentiated manifested in the mental, social, and moral conditions of the humanity. Upon the external plane, it seems to settle the question of good and evil, and harmonize all their inequalities with what seems divine justice. All these delusive appearances, however, are but empty shadows of the phenomenal world. They can only deceive those who are entirely upon the external plane, and who have accepted such teachings without verifying the doctrines for themselves. There are two methods of verification. One, the actual experience of the soul. The other, the response of the soul to the thoughts and ideas we derive from an author's work. Unfortunately, this latter kind of verification is subject to very serious drawbacks. A mediumistic nature may be respond to error because of the more potent thought of the writer, or if oversensitive, may be superficial enough to respond to an erroneous idea through pure sentiment. These means have been seized by the inversive brethren to enable them to fasten upon the sensitive minds and mediumistic natures of the Western race these erroneous, delusive doctrines of karma and reincarnation. And this is what everyone thinks is all about esotericism. They think esotericism is reincarnation and karma. Every school nowadays is based on it. It's completely making you a materialist. It's making you a nihilist. It's cutting you off from your divine guidance. It's cutting you off from your divine masculine or feminine polarity. And it's going to make you ill prepared to instantaneously transfer into subtle realms. It's going to make it hard. And I'm just giving you all the knowledge. I didn't just wake up one day and think, I don't like that idea. I don't like that belief. I full-heartedly believed it. I was reading all kinds of esoteric books and occult and Eastern, Western, and even C.C. Zane says some of even the Christian mystics are going for that, and the idea was from a misinterpretation. So let's see here. The means have been seized by inversive brethren to make them able to fasten upon sensitive minds, so they're actually taking advantage of us. The most finely spun ideals of the higher life, of Devachan, of the masters, and the blissful nirvana have been and are being represented by a host of sentimental, spiritually sick, mystical writers to explain the glorious mysteries of nature and the secret doctrine of all religious philosophies of which they themselves in real truth know very little. The whole craze is merely a metaphysical delusion cast over their mentalities by means of the magnetic glamour to deceive them. The reader must not suppose that because a person studies the various branches of occult science, tries to lead an ideal life, and after acquiring a very large stock of book lore occultism begins to write and publish works upon mystical subjects, that the person is beyond the worldly plane. On the contrary, this class are the most external of all, because they become dominated by the thought forms of certain occult leaders upon the physical plane, and their sensitive natures become absolutely blind to the real spiritual truth. We have seen numerous examples of this among popular writers upon modern theosophy. The soul alone is capable of penetrating the realms of shadows and seeing through the inverted images to learn the real truth. It seems very strange that the external followers of the path, which leads to physical reincarnation, can be so blind as to imagine that this earth is the only place within God's infinite universe wherein divine justice can be satisfied and due punishment meted out to the evildoer. The life beyond is far more real, far more earnest, and a much more conscious life than here on earth. Surely then the soul can work out its redemption there better than here. Surely the soul ought to be granted the privilege of knowing for what wrong it is being made to suffer. But this is not the case according to the fallacies of esoteric Buddhism. But alas, the spiritually blind are blind indeed. They that have eyes to see, let them see. For the modern Buddhistic theosophy cannot perceive in the slightest degree beyond the dull veil of matter. As a typical example of such material conceptions, we will quote from a publication professing to give the secret doctrine of all religions, The Mystery of the Ages, by Marie Countess. In a footnote, the writer says, "Karma is the law of consequence by which every act receives its exact recompense in the next life, when the soul is born again. But unless the same soul passes on through a succession of earth lives, such a recompensation is impossible, and neither could it expiate or make amends for the injuries it may have done to others, unless again brought into contact with them." So thoroughly materialistic are the ideas conveyed in the above extract, that one would think that esoteric Buddhism was nothing but a materialism run to seed. According to such erroneous theories, we are to believe that recompensation for evil doing is impossible except by physical rebirth. Such writers are so destitute of the higher spiritual perception that they cannot comprehend any process of repentance and purification except upon the material earth, while encased within a material organism. We can only say that to the followers of such, that when authors set themselves upon such a pinnacle of knowledge as to declare what is not possible within the mighty spaces of spiritual existence, they ought to be in a position to verify their assertions. If they cannot do this, then they are simply boasting pretenders to a state of knowledge and spiritual development which they do not possess. And seeing that their teachings do not in any sense agree with the actual experience of those who have penetrated the realms of spirit and investigated the mysteries of life for themselves, we challenge their right to speak with such authority. How different from such ideas are the real truths of nature? How different are the spiritual realities from such oriental theories and dreamy speculations? The talented author of Art Magic and Ghostland, who for years had investigated the various unseen realms of life for himself, give the world a brief results of his lifelong research in the latter work, speaking upon the reincarnation. This is very important. The author says this: "To my dim apprehension, and in view of my long years of wandering through spirit spheres, where teaching spirits and blessed angels guided my soul's explorations, this brief summary of our pre-existent state explains all that the reincarnationists have labored so sedulously to theorize upon. The universal and reiterated assertions of myriads of spirits in every stage of progressive beyond convinced me there was no return to mortal birth, no retrogression in the scale of cosmic being, as a return to material incarnation undoubtedly would be, and all the demands of progress, justice, and advancement are supplied by the opportunities offered the soul in the sphere of spiritual existence. The same author concludes the chapter of his experience in the following eloquent words. I quote, I have stood on the threshold of glorious lands where my eyes could perceive the radiance of the celestials, the memory of whose brightness will warn and beckon me upwards forever. The personal experiences thus narrated correspond exactly in their results with those of the present writer, and also with many other true spiritual initiated occultists with whom we are associated. Can the carefully tabulated results of all our united later labors count for naught? Is it possible that the unanimous but legitimate conclusions of scores of spiritual investigators, each and all of whom were specially qualified for research by reason of their own soul development, are false? Must the result of our own personal research and actual experience of the soul within the realm of spirit be cast away as unreliable simply because they conflict with the old fossilized theory of some priestly metaphysicians? Not so. Dear reader, not so. Prove all things. You see if there's anything more.
Yeah, to kind of, I think we've already brought this up. Yeah, I think we probably mentioned it already, but I just want to call back to the fact that, um,
There's no room to come back.
yeah, exactly. Oh, sorry, I was trying to recall all of this can be almost practically proven by the fact that you can call upon. There are many practices that you can call upon ancestral spirits, and that in itself can already prove that's like, yeah, no, there's no reincarnation. Otherwise, how the heck are these spirits coming back? You can make the argument, sure, they exist at a time. Sure, perhaps you can. But again, it's reminder should be given that there is a place called the realm of the ancestors, right? Like, why build a room if you're not going to use it? Why build a house if you're not to live in it?
And when the Upanishad says return, it's talking about earthbound physical lower realms of like returning to earthbound.
Yeah.
You can't return into a physical body. Your voltage is too high.
Yep.
You're always one and done. And then your physical, like, right, you take your personality and your form with you. I mean, what else are you going to take with you, Nick?
I don't know. I got some luggage over there.
Yeah, you probably have to leave the luggage, but at least you'll have your cognitions, your mind, your memories, your likes, your preferences, and your form is different, right? They talk about how the subtle, of course, you're going to look like you, but maybe better.
Yeah, yeah. Like there's
like maybe worse.
Yeah.
Well, it's both. It could be. All right, it's very volatile and mutable. We're leaving the fixed realm of Earth, and we're moving into mutable.
Yeah, and oftentimes and this is just my own experiences, of course. Whenever I try to focus on my highest point, yeah, usually what ends up happening is it becomes so natural and so much easier to focus on like how I look here. And I'm not saying like 100%. And like you said, you know, you could very well change how you look, right? Maybe you might want to make yourself look more Jupiterian, for example, maybe more Martian. Maybe you want to look more angelic, or maybe you want to look more mysterious. Maybe you want to look like a goblin for some reason.
Because your thoughts are evil, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, like you're even, and it can even be seen, like through like people will call this phenomenon like psychosomatic, right? Where your body, your external body gets reflective of your current state. Like if you're constantly depressed, bad, and your health is bad, you may look a little sullen. Because it's actually even noted that based on your own mentality, your face can sometimes shift, right?
Yep.
Can you like maybe your jaw becomes a little wider, right? Maybe your head becomes a little wide. Maybe uh your features become sharper, right? Your chin, like all these things are indicative of your own state, right? I think it's been said that if those with a thinner jaw, I'm trying to paraphrase what I've heard. I didn't explicitly study this. Is that those with a smaller jaw tend to be more emotionally unstable,
Yep.
right? And then those with a wider jaw tend to become more stable. And it makes sense if you think about it. Like try like balancing like an inverted triangle on a table. It's not going to be very stable. But
Yep.
you flip that around with the triangle pointed up, yeah, it's going to stand up a lot higher. Actually, one thing I wanted to bring up again, and this kind of goes back to saying to how it's somewhat related. It kind of runs parallel to it. Is talking about how these things can come back to these entities, these thought forms can come back to influence us, right? So,
Yep.
so just real quick, I do want to talk about how in Kabbalah magic, in the great work of self-transmutation, it talks about the components of the soul, and it also talks about the concept of demons, right? And so, just I'm going to quickly skim through like when it comes to the parts that are
And
relevant.
real
So,
quick, just to give people context of what we think demons are. Demons are disembodied evil people that have done evil things during their physical life and then now become disembodied. Guess what, folks? They're still evil fucks.
yeah. Yeah, basically, like yeah, demons in many ways can be viewed as pretty much just corrupted thought forms, and we are essentially a very form, not to diminish our higher nature, but like we are essentially thought forms that are utilizing physical bodies right now. But yeah, like these demons are essentially just corrupted thought forms or
Or
entities or beings
corrupted
that
people,
yeah, basically,
which are the
right?
same thing in correspondence ways.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. They're straying away from God. They're or you know the prime mona, the highest of the
They
divine.
take pleasure in evil.
Hmm.
That's a good
So
definition.
yeah. So the way that Liam Thomas, well, actually got this from Kabbalah, explains how and with the mind there are three components. Or sorry, not the mind, the soul. There's the ruach, which is the ego. So that's like the left brain conscious masculine like um, awareness of at least awareness in terms of the physical realm in front of you, not anything beyond that, right? So that's the ruach, and then there's the nefesh, which is the animal soul, that which is the subconscious, the emotional, the feminine, reactive, creative. You know, obviously that's the part that can see, you know, to the beyond. There's also another component, the neshama, which is the higher self, or well, that is the highest emanation. But the primary part that we're gonna focus on is the nefesh. So here, when it talks about demons, so the animal soul is normally pure, beautiful, and innocent, but the continuously stimulated complexes in it eventually become self-sustaining entities, spiritual parasites that sap a great deal of energy from the person playing host to them. These fixed vortexes are like holes or gaps in the seamless fabric of shimmering light, which is the true nature of the nefesh. Through these gaps can creep the influences of destructive forces from other realms. Persistent distortions in the mirror of the Nefesh can reflect not only twisted perceptions of earth and heaven, but also the influences of other dark and unbalanced places. Realms I haven't spoken of yet, quote unquote demons, can thus gain some influence over a person whose Nefesh is in a state of self sustained agitation. Sometimes people can become so mentally and emotionally disturbed that you can sense a hurtful presence seeping through them from, you know, quote unquote beyond. Their nephesh, or subconscious, has been hijacked by portions of the personality that have split off from the whole, and these mini entities can be seen by a clairvoyant as holes in the aura. They act as conveyors for dissonant influences that supposedly exist in other realms besides the Ruach, Nefesh, and the Neshama. Demons cannot actually inhabit a person. They do not exist in this world, but a person can fall victim to their influences nonetheless, if he unwittingly becomes a conveyor of unbalanced influences from demonic realms. The physical senses are constantly feeding into and shaping the nefesh. Our experiences enter and it responds automatically, as rapidly as quicksilver, by, by creating a worldview out of them. This worldview is made up of past experiences and conditions and conditioned responses, constraints, how we see the external environment. Not only that, but the internal landscape of the mind as well. A demonic, fear driven worldview can easily intimidate us and hold us prisoner. And most people cannot see reality clearly reflected in their internal mirror, but instead see it in the way that the complex is embedded there compel them to see it. But it doesn't have to be that way. So yeah, like Chris was saying, these earthbound beings, um, you know, that are so enticed, that are so deeply um, invested into the physical realm, wanting to come back. Obviously, they cannot. So what they have to do, yeah, they have to live vicariously. And here's the funny thing, actually, for Chris, because you also said that if they do incarnate back here, right, they have to essentially incarnate as an animal, like a reptile or an
Yep.
insect, right? So here's the funny thing to think about when it comes to animals. So human beings, um, we human beings are typically more if we're taking that same concept of conscious mind versus unconscious mind. Well, obviously we have both, right? That's not to say that we only have one of them, but animals also have the same thing. But here's the big difference between animals and humans. Humans work more on the conscious mind, right? We do have the subconscious, but we operate more or less primarily on that. Animals, on the other hand, are subconscious. They're very subconscious. They're very reactive. So, while they do have a bit of that consciousness, right? But because they operate primarily on the subconscious, very easily can they be taken over by these influences, right? That's why they're so able to perceive a world that most of us right now can't perceive. Like you notice how like an animal will sometimes be staring at a corner,
Yep.
like freaked out and just like, what the hell? And you look and you see like, what are you looking at, buddy?
Yeah.
Like, what are you so freaked out about? Well, because they work more on the subconscious than the conscious mind, they're able to be not only perceive these influences, but for better or for worse, be influenced by those influences as well.
What's
Right.
interesting is the higher realms, like when you're functioning on a higher realm, like if you hear someone who, had a near-death experience during a surgery or something like that, they always notice that they're in the corner of the room, or there's a person in the corner of the room, because in that dimension, actually, they either manifest in the corners or the ceiling. They're like, what, 4 feet above us, basically? If you really want to get locative, sometimes people like specifics, like the spirit realm is probably corner of the wall, quarters of your room in the ceiling.
Yeah. It's somewhat off topic, but it's just a funny little correlation. I like there's like a franchise of video games, right? Where I forget what the term was supposed to be called, but typically like in these games you always have like a point of view, right? But there was this one point of view that which is a little funny, where instead of following the character or having a top-down view, like a 2D kind of thing, instead it actually is a 3D game, but instead of the camera following the character right behind, or if it's a first-person kind, it's actually situated in the
Yep.
corner.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, you might know the kind of games I'm talking about, but
Yeah, same as Zelda, man. Zelda's a good way to link. Link is a link into the realm. It links the player, and the player's the witness, the person's the persona, and as you could tell, the different viewpoints, right? When you're looking up, that's the view. When you're looking through the eyes of the person, that's the personality, or and then when you're looking from that other side, it's like from another perspective. All these perspectives have their analogous representation of some spiritual potency. Um, that's why when usually people die, they're like, wow, I can see as if I was in the corner of the room, or, oh, it was as if I was just to the right up to my body. They feel like they're up and right. Right?
yeah.
There's locations. And right here, I just wanted to finish off with the Thomas H. Burgoyne stuff. I'm just going to read. We have omitted to note the exception of general laws of reincarnation, which have been set forth. There are 3 classes of exceptions in which rebirth within the human organism may be the usual course. Case of abortion or stillborn children. These not having attained consciousness of external human life may, in fact, generally do become reincarnated. Number 2, cases of natural-born idiots, though it is very rare that even idiots are so lost to all external consciousness as to make rebirth necessary to them. And that just means an idiot actually is someone that can't talk here. Talker here. Yeah. Case of special messianic incarnation by exalted souls for the special purpose of enlightening the race. The laws which govern this mystery are unknown to all except the highest adepts. Such an incarnation transpires about every 600 years, and never twice in succession to the same race. In all cases of messiahship, their glorious souls are conscious of their mission from the moment of birth, though doubtless they wisely keep such precious knowledge to themselves as a protection against the tender mercies of the dominant priesthood of their generation. This class may be called case of conscious reincarnation. The same spirit is never so incarnated more than once. Hence, the stories of Buddha's numerous incarnations are pure fiction. So let me get that up again. This is only once. So they said they can only come back one more time. So wasn't that in total two? Try to read that and understand that, Nick.
Yeah. So, hang on. So the cases of special messianic incarnation by exalted souls for a special purpose in enlightening the race, the laws which govern this mystery are unknown. So, okay, it's just fast forwarding. In all cases, besides these calls, doubtless. So the class may be a case of conscious reincarnation. The same spirit is never incarnated more than once. So incarnated. It doesn't specify reincarnated, because reincarnating implies, it happened again. So it's never incarnated more than once. So like that, right? Unless, of course, the author messed up their wording here. Incarnation more than once. Yeah, this means they only incarnated once. They're never.
From that, okay, but they never came here, so they evolved on a different plane. Let's see. The class may be called. Okay.
So yeah, like it may perhaps in some ways they did have a life, like an ethereal life, not a physical life prior. Got educated or got enlightened, then went through certain processes, like a special kind of course. And then once they were finished, it's like, all right, you're going to take this with you. You're going to go into physical life and go through the whole same song and dance as everyone, but you're going to have this with you.
Oh, okay. I love that. Okay. Yeah. The Messiahship, the only one. So special souls, exalted souls.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, it's not reincarnation.
Yeah. Yeah, so it still falls the same general.
We'll leave with this quote. We're not ending this yet, but this subject matter is, quote, once and only once, saith the law. After the human state, nature shuts the doors behind her. Eternal progression is the anthem of all creative life. So there it is, folks. And if you want another reference, we can go to Illuminated Brahmanism. And he explains that basically myriads who have left the physical life hover over the mortals of the country, seeking for opportunities to become re-embodied in order that they may realize the promised relief from their imperfect development. So they become imperfect in their development because they weren't prepared to still be alive after death. They didn't know that they were going to be the same person with the same wants, the same desires, the same issues, the same gender. So it's a very intense mystery that we're teaching and conveying here. And C.C. Zane, a spiritual contemporary of Thomas H. Burgoyne, explains very intrinsically in lightofegypt.com about the afterlife and how reincarnation, the facts and fancies about it. So he says, I'm convinced it's most dangerous moment when people permit themselves to be so dominated by any new idea, religious or political, that they fear to hear it criticized. Before saying more that my position may not be misrepresented, I may mention that among those I esteem highly are students who make human reincarnation the groundwork of their belief. Other equally esteemed are steeped in the tenets of various orthodox sects. Nevertheless, these people are intellectual, and they are clever in applying occult forces and in discerning occult truths that do not happen to conflict with their religious preconceptions. These good friends are morally worthy, possess high ideals, and are prompted by the best motives. Then again, there undoubtedly have been Christian mystics who have believed devoutly in vicarious atonement, that there have been Oriental mystics accepting reincarnation who have been unparalleled in virtue and goodness. So today there are many worthy persons in both classes. It is not my desire in issuing this lesson to wound the sensibilities of these who hold to the ideas at variance with my own, or to imply upon their part lack of intelligence. I do, however, feel in duty bound to exercise the prerogative necessary to mental freedom, the right of honest disagreement between scientific investigators. It has been well said that it is easier to rescue truth from error than from confusion. Science and philosophy have found it no difficult task to overthrow falsity once there is something tangible to grasp. But a hazy chimera presents no secure hold for reason. Could the tenets of human reincarnation be sharply defined, it could be grappled straightway and its strength proved, but there is nothing definite about it. For in scarcely two schools are the same things taught, and those advocating it most persistently do not agree in essential details. The number of incarnations in human form necessary are given by Mr. Sinnett, who was the first to publish anything regarding the appointed number of reincarnations, as not less than 686. and normally not far short of 800. But varying within narrow limits, one strong school in America teaches that 2 or 3 are all that are necessary, and various other centers teaching reincarnation range between these figures. As to the time elapsing between incarnations, we find in Mr. Sennett's Esoteric Buddhism that rebirth in less than 1500 years is spoken of as almost impossible. But a prominent school in France, whose teachings are gaining ground in America, teaches it is not uncommon for one to reincarnate in the offspring of his own children and thus be his own grandparent. The teachings fluctuating between these extremes, the most generally accepted in America at present being perhaps that about 500 years in between rebirths. The precise effect of karma also is a subject of much discussion, some leaders of the old school holding that the evil wrought in one's life returns only in a general way in a future life, while many of the newer teachers insist on a specific reaction of the good or evil that a murderer will be murdered in a future life by his former victim. In addition to this indefiniteness, which makes plausible explanations easy, because almost anything may happen in so wide a range of possibilities that they are woven about these doctrines by the morbid imaginations of semi-lucid mystics who pose as teachers and thus find their way into print. Such fanatic fabrics of illusion are never dreamed of by that most founder of Theosophy, Blavatsky, who was instrumental in introducing reincarnation to the West. Lacking definite information concerning the theories they are taught, the minds of many students become filled with hazy and ill-defined notions such as fantasy thinking conduces to negativeness in which they become unwittingly easily influenced by unseen forces. Because it has received so much publicity, the investigator at the beginning of his studies is usually impressed with the idea that reincarnation is accepted unquestionably by all occultists at the present day, who have progressed far along the path, and that it has been the universal belief of all notable reformers, philosophers, and initiates of the past. As a single example from innumerable instances that might be cited of the method by which the beginner in occult studies is impressed that everyone, not only the present day but also in the past, who has been noted for wisdom, has embraced the doctrine of human reincarnation. Now it is current saying, based on the controversies of 200 Christian sects, that anything can be proven upon biblical authority. But to believe that a considerable part of the Earth's inhabitants have studied the Bible for 1900 years without discerning that human reincarnation is one of the fundamental important teachings, if that teaching is really there, it oversteps the bounds of average credulity. Human reincarnation implies that once incarnated as a man and gaining self-conscious in the human state, the soul must repeatedly turn to animate other human bodies. Most ancient schools of occultism, including the Brotherhood of Life, believe in reincarnation through various progressive aspects, but they deny the doctrine of human reincarnation. This is not taught by Western initiates, as evidenced by the writings of Helena Blavatsky, who introduced human reincarnation to America. I first worked under the Egyptian part of the African section and later under the Indian section. While writing Isis Unveiled, she worked largely under the direction of Western initiates, and in various places an original edition of the work stoutly denies human reincarnation. Listen to this. So even Helena Blavatsky at first was denying it. She says this: the appearance of the same individual, or rather his astral monad, twice on the same planet is not a rule in nature, it is an exception, like the tetralogical phenomenon of a two-headed infant. So even before in Isis Unveiled, she even said that it was actually an abridged of nature. Reincarnation is not normal. So how did this even get crept in? Again, she says that when it does occur, the designs of nature have been interfered with and she must take another effort. But if reason has been so far developed as to become active and discriminative, there is no reincarnation on this earth. For the three parts of the triune man have been united together, and he is capable of running the race. Those are precisely the views held by Western initiates, and it was not until removing her headquarters to India and coming directly in contact with Hindu teachers that she finally accepted the doctrines of human reincarnation. Interesting, huh?
Ooh, yeah.
It just goes on and on and
Yeah.
on, and I did want to go into other courses here, like there's other things that I want to get into later, like the next life, astrological influences in the next life, and basically.
Oh yeah, I forget if we shit. I forget if we went over it already, but did we talk about already with the gendered soul? Because I remember we had like a
Yeah.
whole thing.
Yep, let's go to that page now. So let's just kind of touch base on what we've kind of learned already. So karma's been misconstrued. reincarnation's more of a case by case basis, very rare, right? It's abnormal or special, but never the norm, right? Everyone only gets one shot in the physical life so that the triune being gets integrated. Once you become discriminative, get ready because you qualify for the next realm. So, and that next realm is separated into 7 different spectrum of layers, and we can go into that next time. And above the astral realm is the 3 celestial realms. So that's going to be intense. But let's get into Thomas H. Burgoyne. What page was the gender information on?
The PDF page was 46, but I think the page was 35. Once it says 35, yeah, that was it.
All right, here we go. As we view the outward forms of man and woman, we cannot fail to observe the perfect harmony between the external appearance and the internal cause. Their organisms are the concrete image of the principles concealed within. It would be extreme height of absurdity for us to believe that a materialized form bears no correspondence to the forces which created it. The form cannot exist without an internal cause, and the internal cause is powerless to produce any external form apart from the reflected image of itself and its functions. Under these circumstances, it must be self-evident that every male organism is the absolute outcome of the masculine forces, and every female organism the product of feminine qualities. Therefore, a male soul cannot be born into the world under the cover of a female form. Neither can a female soul be ushered upon the plains of humanity imprisoned within a masculine body. They are nature's simple facts, which ought to be apparent to every thinking mind. But it seems that such is not the case, for we are seriously informed by certain theosophical writers that during the various incarnations of the human soul within the human form, man may incarnate in the form of a woman and vice versa. We can only say that such unutterable nonsense is almost beneath the notice of any sane mind, and those who make such ridiculous assertions are not only bound to the external plane of appearances, but are completely ignorant of the true light of occult science.
Yeah. These internal mechanics, these internal energies, they're a constant, right? Like if you're incarnated as male, well, of course your soul is fully on male. You're gonna have more masculine energies. Sure, there's yin yang. You do have some feminine qualities, such as the reason why even men can have emotions, and vice versa. Same thing for women, right? Like.
But then there's that definite quality, right? You have to round out, right? You're here to round out your masculine quality. A woman's here to round out her feminine, not to like a woman to become overly masculine is a put off. A man to become overly feminine is a put off. So all these new agers going around, men, full grown men saying that they've accessed their divine feminine. I think that they've accessed something else.
Possibly. It's back to the whole Clifoff principles, right? Yep. Where everything's reversed. Yeah, because and they even talk about we need to have like a perfect balance. There is a balance, but it's not a 50-50 balance.
No,
right?
It's not.
Yeah.
You want to be? Let me know if you want to be perfectly. Nah, man. Listen, he says right here, it often transpires that we find men who appear to possess true feminine natures and women who seem to be masculine in temperament. But this is not really the case. It is only an appearance caused by the combined influence of prenatal conditions and stellar positions at birth. The Buddhistical conception of man and woman rounding out until sex becomes obliterated is probably the most transcendental delusion that ever originated within the Oriental brain. Therefore, we will take no further notice of such. He doesn't even say. He just says we're going to end it there.
Yeah.
He literally says.
Yeah, it's just like, what's the reading? It's like, blah blah blah. Yeah. Okay. This shit's just fucking stupid. Nope. Just there's no need. It's just I think I've already lost too many brain cells just reading that. That's basically what he said.
Yeah, that's exactly what he said. He literally says we will take no further notice of such mystical folly, that we're no longer going to be talking about Nick, you're going to be a woman next round, or my soul's genderless. My soul, I'm genderless, Nick.
Man. Oh yeah, I thought. Oh, dude, I thought you were like hermaphrodite. I thought you had both, but it turns out you had neither. Dang, man, I completely got that off. Shit.
Yeah, and it just, I don't know what to do out here, but all right. Well, now we know, right? You are who you are.
Mm-hmm.
We are what we are. Self-conscious immortality, eternal progression, human form, one and done. instantaneous transference into the astral plane. We're going to have to talk about the conditions of that plane. And I'd like to let everyone know that these Hermetic schools and illuminated Brahmanism, well, these actually have research. Like, they have been gathering research and cross-referencing for hundreds of years. Not only astrology charts, natal charts, transits, they've also been studying NDEs, telepathy. They've studied all of it, and they've cross-referenced all of it, and this is how they've actually been able to come. And not only that, they experience it for themselves, and they actually give you training on how to acquire the ability to do that for yourself. However, most of us already have, folks.
Yep.
You know, we can't remember a past human life. We know who we are inside, and we know that that the astral realm is very real, and like you said, more real, more conscious, and more alive than here.
Yeah.
We talked in the last presentation that the physical realm actually is a spiritual realm. It's a little kind of hard to call it just a physical realm because it's actually the negative polarity of spirit. There is only spirit. So even though you think you're in a physical body, you're still in a spiritual realm. In those higher spiritual realms, you still have bodies, and some of those bodies still have organs in various degrees. So
yeah, so oh damn, I had a thought and it's straight. Oh yeah, so yeah, just remember the physical realm here, like especially like when referring to your persona, your physical body. It's, remember what you're experiencing here, what you see here is essentially a blueprint for your future, right? So it's you don't lose it necessarily, but you still carry its likeness throughout the rest of eternity. And for those who really, really want to get into more of this research and experience this stuff for themselves, I mean, obviously, there's many sources of knowledge to derive from, but if you really, really want to start seeing this, start researching more on things like ritual magic as well. Now, sure, it is a bit of a process. I would personally not recommend just jumping straight into the highest things, but progressionally, as you get through it, you eventually get to the state where you'll be able to see these things for yourself and experience them. You don't have to, obviously. Like, it's not necessarily meant for everyone, but
yeah, I think our dreams are enough, right? Like every
yeah.
time you go to sleep, you're being prepared for that next realm. You can look around you. What is your state when you sleep? Are you in hell? Are you in a lower astral realm? I'm kind of meandering around middle, high, low astral realms. I wish I'm trying to get up there to higher places, but it's working. And relieve the fear. Some of the hardships you went through are not punishments. They're to mold you and grow you. Molded by the game. Sometimes God just decided to put challenges in your path not to punish you, but to help you grow. So He knows your eternal destiny. Every soul was created through the voice of God for a particular purpose and mission, and that mission will continue beyond the tomb. Even with your personality, I don't care how many New Age teachers have told you to disintegrate your personality. Disintegrate your personality.
Oh, fine. I guess I'll just be robot. All right, I'm gonna go that way. There's a white light. Okay.
Because it's all about individualization, and it's about taking out the negative, integrating the good, transferring the vice into virtues. But your personality is a mode of expression. Come on.
Yeah, I know. So pretty much remember, this world, like I said before, it's a classroom. It's a forge. It's a crucible. These challenges you face. Remember, you need fire to forge steel, right? Every time, you can even think of it like this: the celestial influences, like one of the biggest ones, especially in astrology, is like Saturn, right? We all know the big bad Saturn, right? But even though he's considered the villain, the devil, the opposer, the controller, he's not necessarily an actual bad dude, because you got to remember, while he may be Satan, he's also Christ, because he's Christos, he's Kronos, right? He's there to teach you. He puts these challenges not to just to be a dick to you, not to just mess with you just for the sake of messing with you, but to help you grow into something better. You cannot a thing cannot grow without some kind of challenge, without anything that goes unchallenged becomes weak and complacent. right?
Yep.
So if you want if you want to grow, and you need to go through these strife to overcome them, become better. It's like imagine playing a sport, right? Whether it's basketball or baseball, but you're always playing against someone that's, you know, that's less experienced, that's less skilled than you, right? Imagine like it's like the same thing as how a sibling, like a is playing a video game with their younger sibling, the younger sibling not understanding the game very well and just kicking their ass every single time, right? Like the older sibling is not going to improve because they're playing against someone who doesn't know. But on the other hand, since they're getting your ass kicked over and over again, you start to learn. It's like that saying that goes like, defeat is a much better teacher than victory ever will be, because victory doesn't really tell you what you did right or wrong. It just shows you that, yeah, you won, congratulations. But defeat, you can see a lot better. It's like, oh, that's what I messed up on. Oh yeah, I did that, and that's why that happened, right? Okay, now I can learn and improve. And oh, maybe I figured out a better way to do this. So now you go higher, and you go higher from there. It just repeats. So you need that strike. You need that pressure in order to grow. Otherwise, you're stagnant. You don't go anywhere. And when you become stagnant, like you become almost apathetic. Become very completely
And
still.
and that's what the spiritual schools have been doing to us. They've discombobulated our minds and beliefs. And even when we thought we were seeking enlightenment in a place that has to have the truth, like you said, we're just under the impression of mediumistic impression that we're just overly sensitive. We're getting bombarded by, like you said, every book you open, Reincarnation, every book you open, the soul's genderless, whatever. It's all nonsense. You think they give out the real truth? And that's why we're here to give a progressive cosmology and of eternal immortal progression, onward and upward forever, self-conscious immortality, and be who you are. Who knows what fills it? And I think we're going to end it there, Nick.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, this was
Good.
quite a bit, and we still got plenty more to go, I imagine.
Yeah, we have a lot to cover. We're going to be covering interplane weather, occupations in the next life, the descent of soul into matter, how it splits into two, how that all works out on its way down. And we're going to talk about, if there's no such thing as karma, are we all off the hook? Well, not necessarily. So,
Yeah, I was like, oh, should I get that cookie I stole? I might still have to pay for that. Damn. Don't tell anyone.
Hey, but like we said, we will have to re-experience all the good and the evil that we've caused other through their point of view in the afterlife. So we actually will experience it from the person, the recipient, as if we were them, and we will experience the pain that we may have caused them knowingly or unknowingly. And because we don't have a physical body to numb those sensations, they will be felt. They will be dealt with, and we will learn from it, and we will strive to be better. And there's nothing like progressing. You can progress over there easier than here. So there's hope for everyone. God bless everyone. And thanks for joining us. And I'm going to premiere this. So catch the premiere, and you can note, we'll be able to type to people and respond.
Sounds good. All right. Well,
all right.
cutting up here. Take it easy, everyone.
Peace, Nick.